Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this very first virtual industry insight sessions sponsored by Geneva Business School. It's a pleasure to have you all here. On this first session, we have the honor of having Claudia Tridapalli. She's going to talk about managing emotions and how to effectively manage and channel your emotions for productive outcomes. So for you to have a little bit of reference about our speaker, Claudia has an engineering background with more than 13 years of experience working with product development for large corporations in areas such as lean and sustainability. So I'm going to give the floor to Claudia so she can start the session. And Claudia, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eduardo. Well, I actually need to say thank you for this opportunity, because I do think I'm particularly very interested in this topic, managing emotions, one of my favorite ones. And due to all the situation that everyone is in right now, it felt like a good timing to talk a little bit about these different strategies that we can use in not only in times like this that we are right now, many times every day we are dealing with emotions, and we have different strategies that you can learn from this. I do have my background in engineering, as Eduardo said. I am also a faculty member in Geneva Business School. I teach lean, I teach sustainability. I'm teaching agile management as well. But for the past 5 years, I'm also dedicating time to this personal development side of things. It demands a lot of work, not only study, reading things, doing training and courses, but a lot of practicing yourself, right? Because it's personal development, so it's a lot on you. So I want to share with you some strategies and some things that maybe some of the strategies I'm going to say, you're already applying, which is great, but how can you apply better and maybe learn some new ones? So let me share my screen, because I do have slides that I want to share with you. All right. So the idea of the talk, and again, I do have a special interest on this, and I think you start to get better on managing emotions as you start to get very interested in it, because it demands work. And as your curiosity, as your interest start to grow, you really become better and better of this. The main ideas that I want to share with you. First, let's talk a little bit about what are emotions, the physiology of emotions, what happens to your body when you feel emotions. We are going to learn some techniques, one specifically that's going to act on your physiology. Since you feel a lot emotions in your body, there are some techniques that will act in how your body works that will also reflect in how you're feeling emotions. And some strategies other than physiology that help you manage emotions. So, first thing that you need to understand and really have in mind, it's not easy. It's not a perfect recipe that you're gonna learn and you're gonna be managing all of your emotions perfectly. It doesn't happen like this. It's a process. So it will demand from you persistency. You need to be motivated. Like I said, when you're motivated with something, your interest, you have the curiosity, you're going to go deeper and understand better. So it is a process, but it's not easy. Some people say it's not even for everyone, because you really need that discipline and that motivation to really follow this path. But it's worth it. Think of kind of a freedom sensation. You feel you're free of that control that sometimes your emotion has on you. Because if you have a very strong emotion, who here never lost yourself with a big and strong emotion, right? That you say things that you regret, you do things that you regret. So you're kind of being controlled by that. So when you learn how to manage, you're kind of free from those things. And this is what I want to pass some knowledge to you. But have in mind that it's not an easy process, but it's worth it. So maybe you heard some of this, that we've been going through different eras, and we had the Industrial Revolution era, and then people say that today we are in the era of information, of knowledge, right? We have so much information available. Today you can learn anything you need to learn, even the most prestigious university as well, from many, many years, as Harvard, for example, have already free online courses that you can do, right? Or YouTube videos. There are a lot of very good content, some not as good, but a lot. So anything you want to learn, you probably can learn. So now we are entering the era of this self-knowledge, and that's a lot on you. You can do courses, or like we are doing now, teaching some strategies, but it's all new. And it's kind of a new area for science, for example. We, especially in the Western world, we really look a lot to explain things, right? To really understand. I really like really understand things, as science does. And self-knowledge is still a new area of that, so there's still a lot to learn. But I invite you all to start to look at self-knowledge in a different way. Since I don't see the chat, guys, I'm sorry, sometimes I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. If you want to ask any questions, you can unmute yourself. Please feel free to interrupt me. I don't mind, okay? But if you want to ask in the chat, I'll try to look from time to time. All right, so self-knowledge. We are entering the area of self-knowledge. In emotional, managing emotions, emotional intelligence has a lot with our self-awareness or our self-knowledge. I'm not going to talk specifically about emotional intelligence, but this is a new area of science. It's very new. There's still a lot to learn from it. And maybe you heard around already about what is considered emotional intelligence, also called EQ. And it has 4 different pillars, let's say. So the first 2 at the top, you see it's about awareness. So 1, it's about self-awareness. So people who are emotional intelligence, they have the self-awareness, they understand the emotions they are feeling, they can identify the emotions they are feeling, and also the social awareness. People can identify what other people are also feeling. It's hard, but there is this thing that depending on how people behave, you can identify the emotional state people are in it. And then there's the management side. The self, so everything in the left, it's about yourself, and to the right, about others. So 1 is how you manage your emotions. So the self-awareness, you know what you're feeling, and then self-manage, you are able to manage. And the same thing for the other people. You have social awareness, and you have how you want to identify emotions from the other people, but how you manage that. If someone is really angry at you, what do you do with that? How are you going to manage that? So the focus of the talk that I want to give into the self-management. It's important that you are self-aware, yes, and we're going to be talking a little bit of how you're going to improve that. But I want to bring the idea that even if you don't know very well what you're feeling, you still can manage that with some strategies. So maybe you don't know exactly If you are frustrated, if you're angry, it's okay. You still be able to manage. If you know what it is, you're going to be able to manage even better. All right, so before we go to the managing the strategies, really quickly, what are emotions? Some things that are important for us to know. First, you need to have in mind that we need emotions, all of them, even the ones that maybe you consider bad, the ones you don't want to feel, you need them. Because emotions are our drivers. They move us, right? They motivate us towards something. And even they motivate you to avoid certain emotions. Usually our decisions are based into, I want to do this because I want to feel this, or I don't want to do this because I don't want to feel a specific type of emotion. So they do move us, and we need all of them. I'm going to give one example that for me it's very interesting. There was, how people understand a lot about how our brain works with emotions by studying people that had some trauma in the brain that needed some surgery, something that affected the brain. So there was this guy that, trying to remember exactly, I think he had a tumor in the brain and he had to go through a surgery. And they needed to change a little bit the connection in the brain from the emotional part of the brain and the rational part of the brain. So something was changed here. And after the surgery, they did all the tests with him and he was okay. He was working well, he passed all the tests, and he went back to his normal life. But then a lot of things started to happen in his life. He lost his job. He was living with a friend favor because he didn't have much money anymore. And so he said, well, there is something that is not working right. So he went back to the doctor, and the doctor, actually, they were still in the phone trying to figure out a day to schedule a next appointment. And the doctor could figure out right away what was wrong. Because this guy, he was able to list all the pros and cons of the days for the appointment, but he was not able to make a decision. Because the point is, any decision you make, even if you think you're only using your rational part of the brain, you're also using your emotions. Maybe you're not aware that much, but you're using your emotions. And since he didn't have the input of the emotions, he couldn't make a decision. So emotions, this is one example. We really need them. Even the ones we are not really comfortable, they challenge us. They make you think differently. So you need to be able to identify your different emotional states and use it in your favor. So these are some of the things we're going to talk how we can do this better. So this...
Claudia.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I see that there are a couple of good comments from Lindewi and Ravi. And I don't know if Lindewi and Ravi would like to open their mics and do their intervention and do the comment.
Well, I can read it as well, but
okay,
feel free to...
Yeah, we can read it. Lindewi was saying, sometimes is to let yourself know that you are not always in control, not even with your emotions. Yes. And it's okay not to be in control. And Ravi said, only by practice we will be able to control.
Perfect.
And then Lindewi said, true, but sometimes you need to just allow yourself to go through it.
Perfect. Exactly. It's not going to be easy. And that's the thing, even in crisis like we're doing now, you probably heard so many times in the past weeks, people who, like Shakespeare, it seems, I don't know if it's true because we cannot believe everything we read nowadays, but Shakespeare wrote a lot of his famous plays during also a quarantine, and many other scientists also developed the things. People create things out of crisis. but it doesn't mean it's going to be all good during the crisis. And you create new things, you change it because it is hard. So you do need to go through hard times. It's not easy, but you can create something out of. And it's a lot about really letting you live through that. That's perfect comments. One thing that is going to help us to live through those maybe hard emotions is understand a little bit what they are. So the science of emotions, very new, they separate into 3 different levels. You have the physiological, the mental, and the expressive. So you feel in your body, physiological, the emotion. You make sense of that emotion mentally, your perspectives, your interpretation, and you express yourself, right? You act on something. So let's first talk about the physiology of emotions. It's, of course, very complex theme, but I want to highlight some things that I think it's interesting to understand. So first, we have our 5 senses, right? That's how we capture a stimulus from the external world, and our brain detects this. So we have the senses, the signals goes to our brain. And then our brain, this amazing thing that we are not really sure exactly how it works 100%, but we know a lot. And I want to highlight in the brain some specific parts that have big importance in emotions. The prefrontal cortex, that is responsible for the rational part, and the amygdala, that is more responsible for the emotional side. Many other parts of the brain also plays a role in this. So don't think it's that simple. I just want to highlight those 2 areas in a very simple way. So how does it work? So the amygdala, our emotional side of the brain, actually has a connection with the eyes and the ears. They are much faster, much stronger than the prefrontal cortex. So that means that the amygdala, we get all those signs first. So there is something that is called amygdala hijack. And that means the amygdala feels first, right? It's stimulated first, then the other parts of the brain, and already process the information and send a lot of signals. It activates neurotransmitters, production of hormones, a lot of things, and also shuts down the prefrontal cortex. So that means that one of the things the amygdala does, it feels the signs and makes your prefrontal cortex, the one responsible for the rational parts, to shut down. So that's why people say don't make decisions when you have strong emotions. You need your emotions to make decisions if they're stable. But if they're really strong, if you have the amygdala hijack, don't make decisions because you're not thinking right. And that's why you end up acting sometimes in a way that you see it's not the best way. Questions maybe? I hear no. All right, so let's go back. So it shuts here and you cannot rationalize well. And this is the starting point, let's say, or one of the starting points. And what happens as well is that, well, the amygdala sends a lot of signals throughout your body, a lot of things will start to happen. We have also very important, the autonomous nervous system. That you probably heard about it, the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system. So the parasympathetic system, it's activated when you are more in the well-being state, calm state, so it slows down heartbeat, constrict pupils, those types of things. And the sympathetic system is the opposite. When you are nervous, when you are afraid, it activates the sympathetic system. And all of this comes from how your brain, the stimulus, goes. But see that the name is autonomous nervous system. It means it works by itself or not in a conscious way. So you don't realize you are stimulated the sympathetic or the parasympathetic. It just happens based in your normal reactions to things, in patterns we create. A lot of it, what it is in your unconscious mind. And we're going to be exploring a little bit further this. But have in mind, amygdala reaction, autonomous nervous system's reaction, it goes by itself. You don't even realize you are doing this. And besides that, an important thing that happens to your body as well is the chemicals that you probably heard as well. How many chemicals we produce depending on the emotion we are feeling. We have the endocrine system, that we have the glands that produce different hormones. So the oxytocin, for example, is produced in states that you are more associated with well-being, calmness. We have the testosterone and estrogen. And here, especially for women, we feel much stronger in our cycles because it changes more those hormones than us. So we feel, differences in how we react and how we generate different emotions. Adrenaline, that it's produced here in the sympathetic system, here, secretion of adrenaline, which makes your heart accelerates, the nerves that are afraid, it comes also from adrenaline. There is also the neurotransmitters, also chemicals in the brain that sends information from one neuron to the other, and is associated also with emotions. We have dopamine and serotonin, also associated with calmness or well-being. We have one very famous as well, and very well known, called GABA. GABA is interesting because when you produce too much GABA, you are in a state that it's too apathetic. You don't do too much, you don't have too much energy. But if you're not producing enough GABA, you become too energetic, too nervous. So all of this happens in our body as we generate emotions. It goes to a brain, amygdala and other parts of the brain. It sends signals, it produces chemicals, it stimulates nervous systems, and that's what you feel when you're feeling an emotion. You can see, you can feel your body, right? There is one study that I like to use as reference, and some of my students maybe remember this slide. There's a study that says the percentage of your daily activities that are executed in automatic manner, meaning that it's not fully conscious. If you can think of a number, just think, right, of a number, what do you think? It's high, but maybe it's not as high as this study is showing, that it says that it's from 96% to 98% of our daily activities are executed in a not fully conscious way. Some other studies may show some different numbers, very complex, but they are all very high. And if you really start to pay attention to yourself, you see that it's true. I mean, if just me right now, how I am, how I'm moving my hands, I don't even have conscious. Everything we're doing is automatic. It's like when you're driving at the beginning, you are really paying attention to everything, but then it's all automatic. And most of our activities is like this, because we function through patterns, and we need those patterns. We need those habits. Otherwise, we don't function. Our brain needs this. Our body needs this. But if you would start to understand better your patterns, you can change them. This is very important, because sometimes we tend to think, so focusing now in emotions, the patterns we create of the way we generate our emotions and the way we react to emotions. A lot of times we end up saying, oh, it's my personality. I've always been like this. And as much as not proven, and we don't know exactly if you were really born this way or if you create it, there are different opinions. Even let's consider the hypothesis that you were born with a specific pattern, let's say. Well, your brain has a huge plasticity. There are many different possibilities of connections in the brain you can do. So even if you have a certain personality, there's a huge room for improvement. Maybe you cannot be whoever you want to be, but you can get closer. So maybe you're working a very tight way in your personality, but you have a big range that you still can change. So don't get attached of always being this way, because you can improve for sure and create new patterns. And that goes back to what we talked about, what science of emotion says. We have the physiological, the mental, and the expressions, but they work with each other, right? So when you feel something in your body, your emotion, and you make sense of what you're feeling, you do interpretations of that, or you react in a certain way, that will actually feed up the next time you're gonna feel the same thing. So the way you think and react today is shaping the way you will keep thinking and reacting in the future. And I'm gonna talk of some strategies to change this, because you can change your patterns. When you change this, you're gonna change all the cycle. So let's go, otherwise I won't get to the strategy with the main point. Just a reminder here. I told you that self-awareness, it's not mandatory for you to manage your emotions. It's good, it helps. So as an exercise during the next week, for example, now that we talked so much about how your body reacts to emotions, try to feel that. Next time you have maybe a stronger emotion, try to pay attention of what is happening in your body. It's going to be interesting for you to understand better how emotions work on you. We're not going to do this exercise here, but try to do it in the next week. And to help with that, I want to use one example so we can see better what is all those chemicals and things that happens in your brain to reactions of situations that we're exposed to. So you probably heard about the fight or flight response, very much used to exemplify this type of thing. So people say that it's in us from ancient, our past, right? Where we are exposed much more to dangers, or for example, to animals. So our eyes would see the danger, and our brain would prepare our body to either fight or run away or flight. And that's why it happens what I described. The amygdala hijacked, it shuts the prefrontal cortex and prepare your brain for the danger. The thing is, in the past, we had maybe other types of dangers. And today, we tend to see danger in too many things. So we are actually stimulating our body, creating all the chemicals of the danger for routine things, small things. You are activating your response. So you're generating, for example, a lot of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, a lot of other chemicals that are toxic for your body. Your blood pressure is higher. Why? Because we are overwhelmed, and your body interpret as a danger, and we stimulate the fight or flight response using different stimulus than before. So for you to understand some of the things that happens to your body when you are exposed to the fight or flight. So in the left side, some noticeable effects. Your pupils dilate. You have the tunnel vision. You cannot see that well. You are in this constant surveillance of surroundings, kind of the afraid of everything. Your breathing becomes really fast and shallow, very superficial. Heartbeat is faster, increased sweating, insomnia, the deficit of attention symptoms. Your muscles strength becomes tense. That's why you have so much tension in your muscles. And the hearing effects, cortisol released, increased blood pressure, sugar, the adrenaline. Oxygen is sent more into the muscles, so you have less oxygen to other parts of your body. So imagine you are going through this many more times than in the past, because you have this stimulus through many different situations in your life. This is not healthy if you're always having your body going through these situations. So when you look at this, all of this that happens in your body, if I ask you now, everyone trying, change your heartbeat now, make it faster. See if you can make it faster. Or dilate your pupils. Everyone trying to dilate. You can't, right? But if I ask you, change the way you're breathing. Breathe deeply. Everyone can do it, right? So what that means is that you do have access to one of those effects that you can change. And what happens if you understand the concept of a system? Our body is a system. And the study of systems says that when you change one part of the system, you change the whole system. Because a system is made of the interactions and connections. So when you change one part, you change everything. So that means that if you can change the way you breathe, you change the way you feel. I hope it's making sense for everyone so far, because I want to go now into a technique that we can do using our breathing that will act in your physiology. Let me quickly go back and see. I know there are a lot of chats. So many things to read. It's hard, guys, to keep going back and forth. We are learning through this online experience. But I have a lot of good and personal things that you guys are sharing. Cool. I'm gonna do like this. Maybe I'm gonna keep, so to have as much time, I'm gonna keep with the slides and leave some minutes at the end. Then maybe you can discuss further and talk to you guys better. And you can ask questions as well. So I wanna work a little bit with this technique then. A lot of scientific studies, how breathing affects emotions. So relation between emotions and breathing shows a faster pace. You have here the graph. Relation between emotions and breathing, reactions to natural and unpleasant sounds. So depending on what you hear, you change emotions, you change your breathing. Different studies, just as a background. Here's what I said, you change the system when you change the way you're breathing. So the way you breathe in emotions, there are two characteristics of the way you breathe that are important for you to have in mind. Is speed and rhythm. So I'll give an example. You can be breathing fast with no rhythm. That type of breathing that occurs natural in you when you have an emotion is associated with emotions such as stress and anxiety. So fast, no rhythm, stress and anxiety. When you're breathing fast and with rhythm, it's associated with energy, enthusiasm. When you have slow breathing, but no rhythm, that's being apathetic, depression. And when you have a slow breathing, but with the pace, with the rhythm, that's to well-being, calmness. So if you see, the main thing that we have here is rhythm. So the most important thing that you need to learn how to do it is having a pace in how you're breathing. There is this video that I'm not going to show to you guys, but as I want to share with you this material, the slides, or even the link of the video that I suggest for you to watch is from Alan Watkins, if you haven't watched yet. He's a physician, psychologist. He studied a lot of emotions in breathing, and he do a live exercise with someone from the audience showing why this pace, this rhythm in how you're breathing actually acts in your physiology and change the way you feel. So the execution of certain exercise that gives the way you're breathing a different pace of the one you are natural in it will lead you to a different emotional and mental state that is associated to the new pace. So depending on the effects you wanted, you're gonna, for example, speed up or calm down your breathing. If you need energy, you have one type of breathing. If you need to calm down, you have a different one. So let's do one exercise. I know I'm not gonna be able to see you guys, but try to do it. So what are you gonna do? That is the first strategy, which is the breathing techniques. So I want you to sit down, try to be comfortable. And we're gonna use two rhythms, two simple ones, just for you to understand. The first one we call square rhythm. It has 4 phases. The 4 phases is inhaling, retaining with air in your lungs is the second phase, exhaling, the third phase, and retaining with no air in your lungs, the fourth phase. All of the phases have the same amount of time. So I'll explain better. Let me just go back here and teach you how to do it. First, I want everyone, let me see if I can see myself so I can see how you're doing. So everyone will put your hands in your belly here. Just make sure you're gonna use your lower part. This lower part is responsible for 60% of your breathing capacity. So you need to use it. So put your hands here in the belly. When you inhale, you're gonna expand out. And you exhale in. Okay? You're gonna use this breathing, only the lower part. But you're gonna add a rhythm. So use 3 seconds. So you're gonna inhale in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Retain with 3 seconds. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And nowhere. 1, 2, 3. And you have to keep doing this. Keep the pace. So keep doing. Inhale in 3 seconds. Retain. Exhale. And with no air. I have trouble breathing. Yeah, so a comment that it came. I wish I had much more time, to be honest. There's so much I'd like to share with you. And it is hard to breathe. And it's something that you're gonna have to repeat over and over until you learn how to do it. If you pay attention to how babies or kids, young kids are breathing, they are using this lower part. We used to use it. But with time, we create different habits and bad habits in how we breathe. And so we end up using only this part. If you notice, and try to notice during this next week, how you're breathing. Probably, not everyone, some people breathe well, but probably you're gonna be using this part, which is very superficial. The upper part here, the chest, is responsible only for 15% of your breathing capacity. 15, that's almost nothing. So you can use your full breathing, which is the belly plus the ribs towards the side. That's the second part. So full breathing, it's important. It's gonna make a difference. But the most important is the pace. So let me go back, and maybe I'm not gonna have time to, I am presenting, sorry. Maybe I'm not gonna have time to practice more time. So I'm gonna leave here for you to do it as a suggestion. Do this rhythm, 1, 1, 1 that we just did. You can use 4 seconds instead of 3 or 5 seconds. All good. This rhythm is associated with stability. It's gonna stabilize your emotions. So if you are before an important meeting, before a presentation, maybe you are nervous about something, Do for around 3 minutes or 5 minutes this. It doesn't, if you do just one time, it's not gonna work. You need to do for a minimum of 3 minutes so your body understand, so you can hack the system. This is one thing, one rhythm. Very good, simple and good. The other one, very simple as well. Every time you have a longer exhaling, is associated with calmness. So if you are really nervous before you go to sleep, for example, you can use this one. You inhale in 4 seconds. Do not retain with airs. You exhale in 6 seconds. Very simple, 4, 6. And that, since you have a longer time to exhale, your body will go towards this direction of calmness. So 2, very simple. And I know there are probably a lot of comments. I wish we have more time to talk to you guys. So we're not gonna be doing too much of this exercise now, but as a suggestion, do it. Square rhythm, stabilize, long exhale to calm you down. Very easy, I'm sure you can try it. And try to use your lower part to breathe as well. So this is a strategy. You're breathing. But even if you're breathing perfectly, it doesn't mean you're not gonna feel the emotions. It's still gonna be there. And again, it's important. Imagine a life with no emotions or only with good emotions. It would be totally different. You need also the ones you consider bad. So when you're breathing, you're still gonna be feeling those emotions, not gonna solve the problem, but it's gonna take you closer to be able to manage your emotions. So I have another strategy, the second strategy for managing emotions. It's called Objectify your emotions. Another video from the same guy, Alan Watkins. Why I like the way he talks is because he do have some terms that he uses that it's easier for us, at least for me, maybe for you as well, to understand. His didactics, not sure how to say this, but the way he explains, it makes it easier to understand. For you to watch as well as a suggestion, he uses a lot this objectify your emotions. Some people call to embrace your emotions. So you're breathing well, you're still feeling the emotions. Try to separate yourself from the emotion. You are not your emotions. You are feeling it, you have them, but you are not them. So separate yourself. You can objectify your emotions and see, oh, I feel angry. So you are not angry, you feel angry. You can make a third person and see yourself feeling that, but you are not that. But why it's important with this strategy is that you need to be true to yourself, and that's one of the hardest things, because you're gonna see how many things you feel that you didn't want to feel. All the reasons you feel that they're not good reasons. Let's say that you're gonna discover so many things about yourself, even things you judge in other people, you do it. But you kind of blindside you think you don't, but you do. There is this phrase that I like from Carl Jung, from this Collective Unconscious book. It's long, but I'm gonna quickly read it to you. This confrontation means the knowing yourself, be true to yourself, is the first test of courage on the inner way, a test sufficient to frighten off most people. For the meeting with ourselves belongs to the more unpleasant things that can be avoided so long as we can project everything negative into the environment. Quickly explain until here. So there's knowing yourself, be true to yourself, frighten most people because you will discover many unpleasant things about yourself. And we can avoid this, we can pretend it's not there, and we actually project out those things that we avoid. And that's why a lot of times you hear, right? You only project all the things you do The things you say, it's because, well, it comes from you, right? You project outside. Or the things you see in other people, the things maybe you judge in other people, or things that is part of you. But if we are able to see our own shadow and we can bear knowing about it, then a small part of the problem has already been solved. We have at least brought up the personal unconscious. So there's so many things that you have in your unconscious, and that generates all of the things we saw in the brain, in your reactions, that when you start to really pay attention, you're going to discover many things about you, and that's going to take you, like he's saying, a small part of the problem has already been solved. A lot of times, since we're made of patterns, but they are unconscious, a lot of times by only making it conscious, you know about it, you break the pattern. It's just you never realized. So you're going to be discovering things like, oh, now I see it. You break it, you're not going to do it again. A lot of times you demand more work than this. But that's very important. Be true to yourself. And then when you objectify your emotions, it's easier to reason it. Important to not feed the emotion. You're feeling, but you're not going to be feeding to increase emotion, like you are angry at someone. I cannot believe the person did this. And you start to go over and over and over. Don't feed it. Just feel it and leave it there. Ask questions to you. What are the patterns that it's leading me to feel what I feel? Maybe someone else would feel differently. Why? Laugh at yourself. It's very funny, really. When you start to discover things about you, it's like, oh my God, I cannot believe I did this. And laugh at yourself. That's how you're going to be improving. Very important. You only feel what you generate. You create your emotions. You saw in how our body works and generate those things. You create it based on your interpretations. Unconsciously, but you do. So we need to stop blaming people, blaming situations for what we feel, because we create them. And as we create them, a lot it's in our hands to change that. Another very important thing. I'm sorry, I just maybe I'm rushing. I would love to try to finish. But very important thing. Do not repress your emotions. Never. There is one thing that I like to use to compare, which relates to, I also teach sustainability, right? So circular economy, maybe you know about it, tells a lot about how to keep the value of things and not throw away things. Because thinking of the garbage you create, like the trash, the waste, what you do today, you put in the trash, you don't see it anymore. But it doesn't mean it's not impacting you, right? You throw in the trash, and then maybe it goes to the sea, that goes to the fish, and then you eat the fish, right? It comes back to you, or in the pollution of the air, but you don't see the direct influence on you. When you don't see it, it's easier to don't worry about it. And when you're repressing emotions, you're doing the same thing. You say, no, I don't feel that. You're not true to yourself. So when you don't see it, you think it's not influencing you, but it is. When you're repressing things, you don't see it, but it's influencing you unconsciously, but it is. So it's much better to just get that emotion, don't repress, and do something about it. If you repress, it's going to actually get stronger, 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 stronger. Not repress it. Strategy 3, reappraisal. That's all about the mental part. Going back to the 3 stages here. And the way we think and react shapes how we're going to keep thinking and reacting. And what is interesting, and someone did a comment in the chat about this, that you need to repeat. So the emotional part of our brain, it's interesting because it learns by repetition. Our rational part learns, oh, I understood this, now I know, and it's done. The emotional part, you need to repeat over and over and over. Otherwise, you won't learn. So you can use your mental part to create new patterns to you, change perspectives, making the unconscious conscious, as we said. And when you are breathing right and you keep your prefrontal cortex working, that will allow you to objectify your emotion so you can reason better and create new patterns. So it always goes together. You feel your emotion, make sure you're breathing right with a pattern, calmly, your prefrontal cortex will work, then you're gonna be reasoning, and then you can change your perception and interpretation. That's all on you though. You need to figure out new ways and different perspectives. Remember that I said it's not easy. It's hard, but it's totally worth it. Strategy 4. Sorry if I'm going too fast. Easy one as well. Well, easy to say, hard to do, which is we are what we do and not what we think or feel. That's a saying that a lot of people say. There's no author on this, at least that I know of. There is this good saying that says, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. The thing is, sometimes it's hard to change your perspectives, as we are talking here before. It's really hard to change it. But sometimes you can change the way you do. Maybe you still think a certain way. It's okay to act differently. So build new ways of reacting to things. I've been doing this strategy a lot lately. And it works. You're not gonna repress yourself. You're just gonna try out different things. I'll give an example. Sometimes you may be in an argument with someone, you are sure you were right. You can say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, even though you think you're right. It's okay to say, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Not all the time. Sometimes it makes sense for you to keep fighting for your opinion, but a lot of times it doesn't make difference. You say you're sorry, you keep going, and you see how much more productive it is, things like this. So try out new ways to react. When you see your natural way of reacting coming, you're like, let me try a new thing and see how it goes. And that's how you discover new ways to react. All right, let me skip this one because it's what I said, because I have the last one. Channel your emotions. So I have this quick story here. So let's say, imagine you have a rock. You see here in the image. You have a rock in the top of a mountain. It's about to come down, but it's not yet. It's almost. With one finger, you can hold the rock. Almost no strength, you can keep the rock in the top. But if for some reason the rock comes down, there's no way to stop it. And that's a lot about emotions. So when you get lost in emotions, forget about it. Doesn't matter to breathe right, doesn't matter to do reappraisal, anything, forget it. You need to feel that emotion and learn from it. So sometimes the emotion will get you. And that's when you're gonna channel your emotions. Since we're out of time, the main thing maybe about channel emotions that I wanna give you as an example. Think when you have anger, you're angry at something. You produce energy inside of you. All those things we saw, hormones, a lot of things, a lot of energy. So you can use the energy to produce something different. Play sports, for example, something that demands physical action. So instead of violence with someone, you use the energy for something more productive. Or if you're sad, for example, you don't have as much energy, you're more like this. So a lot of people who are in a sad situation use a lot for creative as well, to write things, to draw. A lot of the artists use those moments to create something. So each emotion you can use in a more productive way. So when you get lost in your emotions, you can channel them for something productive. And I hope it makes sense, because I said at the beginning, it's not easy. All I'm saying makes sense. When you're gonna try, maybe it's gonna be hard. And the way you breathe is gonna help you to make sure you have your frontal cortex here working, and you're gonna be able to apply all of those things. So, highlights. You only feel what you generate, it's your responsibility. Emotions are drivers and you need them, you need to channel them. You cannot control your emotions, but you are able to not let them control you. Breathing is one vital and conscious activities, and you have access to it. So it can lead you to more productive emotion states. And try always to detect subtle changes in emotion in the beginning so you can stop it. Change your breathing. Do not feed your emotion. Do not repress. Observe yourself. Objectify your emotions. Act differently. Change your patterns. And if nothing worked and you still lost yourself, channel to something else and learn from it. And that's, I know I went really fast. And I wish it would be more interactive, but I felt some difficulties in the online to keep with everyone's comment. But that was the main message, and I know maybe it was a lot of information. I hope you guys could follow and learn some from it. And now, how do we do? Maybe Eduardo, you can help me. We do have more time, right, for questions.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the idea is to invite the students to, in an orderly fashion, open their mics and express their questions or comments, so we can hear them out. Because I've been reading the chat, and there are very insightful and amazing comments there. So I encourage you guys to open your mics. We're going to have like a 10 to 15 minute period, so you can do comments, questions, and now the real interaction starts. So feel free.
Yeah, I have a question. Like, especially right now, what we're going through with, being at home all day and trying to stay motivated to keep up with assignments. That's something I don't know, other students obviously have been struggling too, but it's something that I've been having a really hard time to do, especially because I consider myself more of an extrovert instead of an introvert. So I feel more successful if I'm outside doing stuff, and then I come home and I'm like, okay, I did my fun stuff today. So because my mind is just like, home is for like sleep and eat, and that's it. And maybe some reading. And then outside is more where you're going to be more like successful throughout your day. That's how I am. Like, I'm more successful being outside. It keeps me motivated. So I'm having a really, really hard time to find a way where I can, like, I haven't had any like that much time to like focus on myself because I'm just overwhelmed with like assignments, because I haven't been having a hard time to like keep up the pace, I guess. So I don't know, what do you recommend?
Well, first, you're not the only one, for sure. And one of the things that I mentioned at some point about those crises, those moments that are very intense, like this one, is exactly because you learn about you. So what you shared with me, you say, I associate outside with some things and inside on other things. This is something you created through your life. So you learn about yourself. But one thing you need to have in mind, everyone, is that life changes all the time. It's very dynamic. So this need for us to adapt ourselves, it's there. We need to develop this. But that doesn't mean it's easy. So the only way you change if you were exposed to a situation you are right now. So you learn something from yourself. Like, yes, I associate this. So how can I do this differently? This is the process you're going to go through now. And I cannot give you exactly way that you change it. The thing that I can suggest to you is be open-minded. You identify that on you, but don't get attached to it and say, this is how I am. you can change. Like say your brain has plasticity, can change patterns. It's hard, but that's your opportunity to exactly adapt and create new things.
Right. So basically, you just have to be patient with yourself and
patient, but also curious. I like this word curious of say, oh, I am like this. Look, can I change it? And try out new things. Don't get attached of this how I am, but try out new things and maybe it's not gonna work. And that's the persistence. Remember that it's not easy. Maybe it's not for everyone because you need persistence. You're gonna change something, it's not gonna work. You keep changing. It's like, sometimes I like to compare this crisis as with entrepreneurship. People who are entrepreneurs, they go through this. The profession is like this. They go up and they go down. They're very motivated about something. This will work. Oh no, it won't work. Oh no, this will work. And when you're in a crisis, you're kind of going like this. You're gonna discover a lot of things that will work, and suddenly maybe not as much. And that is the process. So use it. It is like this.
A quick parenthesis for all students. Please bear in mind that the attendance Google form is now available and will remain available during the following 15 minutes, in which you can mark yourself as attended on that list. So while we do the questions, please go ahead and mark yourself as an attendee, and let's keep it going with the questions. Sorry for the interruption, Claudia. You may proceed.
No problem. Anyone else has any comment or any questions? And I also, I think I'm gonna have access to the chat as well later on. So I'll see if maybe I'll look better at the comments that I know there are some very good ones and some questions that I can answer at least to the person. But if you have any questions now, I'm gonna look to see if there was any questions before. So feel free to jump in now.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, Claudia. Thanks very much. That was really interesting, really insightful. My question is, what do you think about the comment, you should leave your feelings at the door when you enter work?
I don't think, no, that's a good question. I don't think it's possible. So that would be repressing, right? That's something that you need to be careful. I think the thing is, do not let that control you.
Yeah.
Not feed those things. You're not going to leave at the door. You're going to carry it with you. And that's the challenge of managing emotions. You are going to feel it. It's there. Maybe not as intense. You will always affect some of the decisions, more or less, but you cannot separate yourself. It's going to be there. And like I mentioned at the beginning, the emotions you feel affect your decisions. Wanting or not, it will. So if you have maybe a problem at home when you get to work, it is going to affect your decisions. It is going to affect your work. So I think there's the two sides of things, of the emotional intelligence that we talked at the beginning. One is your empathy. You understand that maybe some other people are going through something like this. He or she won't be able to just separate. So there's some empathy on this. And when it's with you, you put effort and don't, again, get attached to things. I have problems at home, so I cannot work. It's in there, but those strategies that I mentioned, you have to use in those moments so you can manage. It's there, but it's not taking control of you. You manage. We need emotions. Again, you have this mix of emotions, personal problems, work problems, all of that makes what you are right now. And you manage what you're feeling right now.
Great, thank you.
Any other?
Hi, sorry, I have one.
you know, when you talked about the era of self-knowledge and emotional intelligence, you talked about like relationship management. Do you mean relationship management with like a significant other, or is that to do with anything, like a relationship with your teacher? Not in that way, like.
Yes, exactly. Anyone, with people. That's with people. That specific one, how you relate to others, it's a whole different course as well, because you can explore so many things. Managing your emotions, it helps a lot, how this relationship that you have with other people, but they're much more into this, because as I said, we have a lot of patterns that we create in how we react, right? And we have a lot of, we call paradigms, let's say, right, in your life, that things that you developed in your life, that is that I believe in this, like beliefs, strong beliefs that you have, and you act with it. And when in your relationship with people, there are a lot of that. So the example that I gave related to say sorry even when you think you were right, that's a good example, right? Or I'll give another example. We have, a lot of people have this paradigm that says, I'm not gonna take the S word, I don't know if I can say this, home. So if someone attacks you, you're not gonna get it, I need to attack it back. This is a paradigm that a lot of people have, that in order to be strong, you need to attack it. You need to be the strongest, the best. This is a paradigm that we have. So in relationship with other people, you need to identify those things, because you can change your perspectives. And for me, it makes much more sense. So for example, who is the strongest? The one who attacks it back, or the one who is being attacked, but is stable? Because what other person is thinking or saying is the other person, is not you. So if you're able to keep your stability, your serenity, you're probably much stronger, because that's much harder. Yeah. So that's a little bit of emotions in relationship with others, some examples. Make sense?
Thank you. Yeah. And then, sorry, I had one more question that I asked in the comments, but I don't think you saw it. So I just asked, like, you were talking about, like, you know, back in the day you had different situations, and these days it's social media kind of thing. So I was asking, how do you escape the fight or flight from social media?
That's a good question. I think all these strategies that I mentioned will help you that. I mean, you need to be breathing well the whole time. That's the objective. The change your perspective about things. You need to use it also on social media. If it's in social media or presence, the strategy is actually the same. Maybe what happens in social media, do you think maybe you have more of that? You have more intense things in social media?
I just feel like, you know, sometimes you can have, not intentionally, but maybe like the feeling of, you know, everyone's better than you, or how do you live up to something like that, or I'm not as pretty, or I'm not, you know, so it's, how do you fight against that mental, emotional
Yeah, but I wish I had maybe a more straight to the point thing, like do this. But one thing that I suggest, so the fight against, maybe it's not the best way, because you need, the first step is always to understand, objectify that. You have it. It's okay to have that. Don't repress and say, oh, I cannot have, I need to fight against that. Accept that you have it. Once you do this, it's gonna be much easier for you to work in different ways to react on that. But that's what the self-knowledge is, a long process, because everyone is different. So you will have to end up finding your own way to create new perspectives for that. But the first step is accept that you are like this in social media. It makes you feel like this, and try to question why. Everyone will have a different answer for that. Why you feel like you feel when you are on social media? Accept and ask yourself.
I feel like being in a world where everyone is competing, you sometimes find yourself trying to compete as well and trying to be at the top to,
Exactly.
you just want to make everyone proud. I don't think anyone ever wants to disappoint anyone. That's not a goal we have as people. But it's just hard sometimes because, there will always be someone better or than you. So I think sometimes living up to that or having siblings to live up to their expectations, I feel like that can mess with your emotions because not having to be like the child with the straight A's, or I feel like that can break you down emotionally. But some people, I feel like they bottle it up and they don't know what to do with their emotions.
What I can tell you is challenge yourself a little bit more. It seems to me you understand a lot, some of the things that drive competition, make people proud of you and those types of things. Challenge yourself. Do you really need this? Challenge new ways. Maybe you don't need to make other people proud of you. The last slide, you went a little bit too fast on the channel your emotions. There was one that it was envy. When you feel envy or you are competing with someone, you can channel to admiration. Those are more easier to channel because envy means you are wishing someone else is worse. You are wishing bad for someone else. I envy that one. I wish they didn't have that. Admiration means I admire that person and you use as your favor. I want to be like that. So I'm going to work on myself. I'm not going to worry about the other person, but I will admire and go on. But what I suggest you is challenge what you just told me. You don't need to do all those things you told me. You don't need to make everyone proud. You don't need to compete with everyone. As much as you feel it, remember the strategy of acting differently. You feel it. I feel it. I am competitive in a lot of ways, but you don't need to act. You can act differently. And it's not repressed. It's so superficial, those feelings that we feel about being best and the others, so superficial that it end up not being repressed. Try to do creative. Do something totally different that you're used to.
Okay.
And
yeah, thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. And if you have any more questions, if you any other thing you wanna mention, well, I'm a faculty member, so I'm a teacher at GPS, so you can reach out to me at any time. Send an email, Google Hangouts, anything. I'll be glad.
I have one question.
Yes.
Are we gonna be able to have access to the presentation?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
And then I suggest you guys watch those 2 videos that I shared. It's going to complement some of the things that I said. He has a good way of explaining things. Very good.
So we are gonna have access to the presentation and to the recording as well.
Yes. Right, Eduardo? Do you know how it's going to work?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, guys? And remember, I told you at the beginning, I wish I had a perfect recipe. Do this. Sometimes more subjective. But if you use those strategies and start to use it, you're going to discover a lot of things. Just try it. Keep trying. It's a long process. And you're going to start to see results. And when you see results, you motivate yourself and you keep doing and you keep doing. And then it gets really interesting. And if you need any help, anything, let me know. We can talk together as well.
Well, we have time for one last question before we conclude the session. So speak now or make your piece.
I have a question, Claudia.
Yes.
There was a table in your presentation which listed some emotions, and
Yes.
you mentioned, okay, for example, instead of hypocrisy, use diplomacy, or instead of hate, use anger. So how we can, for example, show our anger instead of being hateful.
This one, right? So this table, I think you're seeing my screen, right? Yeah. So this one, what it shows is that to channel your emotions is easy. It's easier for you to channel from one emotion to another one that is somehow similar, kind of the same type of frequency, let's say. Like I mentioned, you cannot channel your, when you're sad, you cannot channel that to something very actively, because that's not gonna work. So here in this table, it shows that instead of when you feel passion, try to channel to love, because passion is too strong. Or hate, channel to anger. When you are angry, you are productive, act out of anger, you want to do something about it. Instead of greed, ambition. It's okay to be to the ambition. Fear, as in the time right now, it's important. Instead of fear, precaution. It's not that you're going to say, I'm not afraid of anything. You need precaution. So those are suggestions. Or envy, like I said, to admiration. It's easier to do this. But in order to do this, first, you need to really kind of be aware of what you're feeling. So you start to feel something like, I'm really in this stage of hate. I hate the situation. When you hate the situation, it's not going to be productive. But if you can see, okay, can I use this anger to do something? Then you're going to figure out yourself ways to do this. The same thing, if I am too afraid, can I tell to precaution? Okay, I'm afraid, so what can I do as precaution to prepare myself, but not go overwhelmed? So those are suggestions that are going to be easier for you to use it and channel, because they're similar ones. But the ones to the left are productive ones, and the ones to the right are the ones that is going to produce a lot of toxics, and it's not going to be productive for you. Does it make sense?
Yeah, thank you for explanation.
Welcome.
Hi, I want to ask something.
Yes.
Do you think we should practice meditation like as much as possible?
Oh, that's a great question. And again, I wish we had more time, because that would be another strategy that I would recommend. I know GBS also provides the mindfulness session. Encourage everyone to do it, because when you practice mindfulness or meditation, there are two different things, but both acts on making you more, it increases your chances to do all these strategies that I mentioned. Because when you practice the mindfulness meditation, you're going to be much more into the feeling yourself, really into the moment. You're going to be better in reasoning your emotions. You're going to be more creative. You're going to find new ways of doing things. You'll be able to channel emotions much better. And remember the metaphor of the rock falling down? You have much higher chances of detecting early on, when you start to feel the emotion, before the rock starts to fall down. When you feel a little bit of emotion, you're going to have much more chances of identifying that if you do mindfulness and meditation, because you're going to be more aware. So you're going to detect before if the rock falls down. And that's much easier. Once the rock goes, it goes, forget about it. You're going to get lost in emotions, and that's okay. Next time you do better.
Great. Well, thank you very much. This has been fantastic. The comments, the questions, the content, Claudia, was fantastic. I want to congratulate everyone. We had a fantastic quorum. We had almost 80 participants, and we had students from Geneva, hello students from Barcelona and Madrid, also alumni and prospect students. So thank you very much to everyone for your participation, for your valuable input. We really appreciate it. And thank you again, Claudia, for a wonderful session. Thank you very much, everyone.